Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. You know how companies are always coming out with new stuff? Well, today we're diving into how they decide which innovations to go for.
Mm.
It's not as simple as it looks. We've got this super interesting chapter from a textbook on strategic management all about it.
Hmm.
It's like getting a sneak peek behind the curtain to see how some of these big business decisions go down.
Definitely.
We're going to be talking about everything
Oh, yeah?
from mapping out how technology evolves
Yeah.
to the, I don't know, the more like number crunchy side of things, like
Yeah.
the investments and all that.
Mm.
Have you ever looked at a new gadget and been like, why? Why is it so fancy? Why did they even bother making this?
Yeah, for sure.
We're about to find out exactly why companies take those leaps of faith and go for those innovations.
Absolutely.
So, we always think about like innovation being these big sudden breakthroughs, these big aha
Yeah.
moments.
Yeah.
But our source here says it's more like following a trail.
It really is. It's less about those random light bulb moments and more about, strategic trailblazing.
Okay, I like that. Strategic trailblazing.
Yeah.
So give me an example. Give me an example of this trail in action. Like how does that actually play out?
Well, just think about smartphones.
Okay.
We've gone from those like giant bricks, right?
Oh yeah.
To flip phones,
To the little tiny
touch screens, yeah.
Yeah.
And now everyone's all about the foldables.
Foldables. Yeah.
But each of those steps, right? Each of those steps built on the one before it. They either addressed some limitation, like size or battery life, or they brought in, some new value to the customer.
So companies aren't just like randomly guessing about the future.
No, no.
They're looking at these tech trails to see like, okay, where is this thing going? What's coming next?
Exactly.
And this chapter actually gives steps to like map these trails out. Is that right?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
So the first step is you got to figure out what the key dimensions of that technology are.
Okay.
So like for our smartphone example, you'd be talking about screen size,
Yeah. Yeah.
processing power, battery life, all those things that people care about.
Okay.
And then you basically map out how much value, how much utility each improvement brings to the customer.
Okay, so like a graph.
Yeah, think of it like a graph, yeah.
Okay.
Showing you where those sweet spots are.
Okay. Okay. This is where it gets kind of mind-boggling to me.
Oh, yeah.
Because this chapter talks about companies pouring money into audio tech that's like way beyond what humans can even hear.
Yeah, yeah.
Like super high frequencies
It's up there.
that we can't even pick up. Why bother if we can't even hear those frequencies?
Like,
Why are they investing in that?
it's a good question. And I think it shows how, I guess sometimes, the perceived value of something
Okay.
can really be what drives the innovation. So these companies, they thought there was a market for this like perfect sound.
Even though we can't even hear it.
Even if we can't perceive it, right?
Yeah.
They were going for a competitive advantage. They wanted to stand out in the market.
Okay.
Our sound is the best sound because it includes all these frequencies that you can't even hear.
Right.
But it does make you wonder, though. Like, are we always getting the real benefit from these innovations? Or are we sometimes paying for things like we can't even experience?
That's a really good point. Like, what are we actually getting
Right,
from some
well.
of this stuff? Okay, well, speaking of investments, let's talk about something that every company has to deal with.
Budgets.
Budgets.
The dreaded budget.
Even the biggest, most innovative companies, they don't have unlimited money.
Right, right.
So how do they decide where to put their money when it comes to these projects?
Well, it's a constant balancing act. The source material uses this term R&D intensity, which is basically how much of a company's sales gets pumped back into research and development.
Okay.
And the numbers can be really surprising.
Okay, well, lay it on me. What are some of these numbers?
So back in 2016, Amazon was putting a whopping 12% back into R&D.
Wow, 12%. Okay.
But then you look at big car companies like GM and Ford,
Yeah.
and they were only at about 5%.
Okay, so that's a pretty big difference.
It's a huge difference. And I think that, that difference tells you a lot about how fast things are changing in different industries.
Okay, so like tech companies are always on the move.
Tech companies, pharmaceutical companies, they're constantly trying to, stay ahead of the game.
Yeah.
They've got to be innovative. They've got to be coming out with the new things. So they're pouring money into R&D.
Okay.
It's a totally different game compared to, traditional car manufacturers who, for a long time, had a much slower innovation cycle.
Right. Yeah. They weren't coming out with brand new models every 5 minutes.
Exactly, exactly. But even then, they've still got to make choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even the car companies, they've got to decide where that R&D budget goes.
Okay. So it's not just about how much they spend, but also which projects they say yes to.
Right.
So how does that decision making actually happen? How do they pick and choose?
Well, that's where you get this idea of capital rationing, which sounds very official,
It does sound very official.
but basically just prioritizing.
Okay.
You only have so much money.
Right.
You can only do so many things.
Right.
So companies might look at what their competitors are spending,
Okay. Keeping an eye on the competition.
or they might look at their own past performance to see, what's worked before.
To get like a benchmark.
Exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
benchmark.
okay.
Of course, they're looking at, potential returns, how much money could we make from this?
Right.
But they're also thinking about risks. What if it doesn't work out? And how each project fits into their overall strategy.
Yeah.
What are we trying to achieve as a company?
Okay. So you've got these big companies trying to strategically place their bets within these budgets. But what about the newer companies, the up-and-comers?
The startups.
Yeah, the startups, they don't have these huge sales figures, right?
Right.
Or these big R&D departments. So how do they get things rolling? How do they get funding for their big ideas?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. This chapter tells the story of GoPro.
Okay, GoPro, the action camera.
Yeah, the action camera. And you know what? The founder initially funded the whole thing with a $265,000 investment from his parents.
Whoa, his parents.
His parents. Talk about believing in your kid.
That is incredible. But I
Yeah.
mean, not every startup founder has parents who can just drop $250,000 on their idea, right?
Right, right.
So where does that money come from for most startups?
That's where you get into this world of angel investors and venture capitalists.
Right.
They're the fuel for the entire startup ecosystem. They provide the funding, in exchange for a piece of the company.
Okay, so what's the difference? What's the difference between these angel investors and venture capitalists? They both sound super important.
Yeah. So think of angel investors as the real risk takers,
Okay.
the early birds.
Okay.
They're often, they're often individuals. They've got a lot of money,
Okay.
and they're willing to back an idea that, that seems promising,
Yeah.
even if it's still very early on.
Okay.
Like the classic example is Peter Thiel's investment in Facebook,
Right, back in the day.
back when it was just a tiny little, website.
Yeah.
Venture capitalists, on the other hand, they usually come in a little later,
Okay.
Once the startup has gotten some traction, they need more money to really scale up.
Okay, so they're coming in for the big leagues.
Yeah, for the big leagues.
Yeah.
And they're usually, they're firms managing money from lots of different sources.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And, we actually have some big names in the angel investor and venture capital world
Oh, yeah?
right here in the Singapore, Malaysia region.
Absolutely. We've got organizations like the Malaysian Business Angel Network, or MBN,
Okay.
which connects startups with investors. And then there's Cradle Fund,
Okay, Cradle Fund.
which is a government-backed venture capital firm, supporting startups.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've got these big players, but we also have individual investors making their mark too,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like who are some of those
The-
names?
People like Eddie Chow,
Right?
Terrence Chan,
Yeah.
they've really made a name for themselves in the startup scene here.
It's cool to see that it's happening right here.
Right
Well,
here. It's an
yeah.
exciting place to be.
Yeah, it's exciting. Okay, so let's say I'm a budding entrepreneur.
Mm.
I've got this $1 million idea.
Okay.
What makes these investors, these angel investors and VCs,
Yeah.
what makes them decide to back me?
Well, it's a lot of things,
Yeah.
really. You got to have a solid plan. You need a team, a good team with the right skills.
Okay.
You got to have a product or service that solves a real problem.
Okay.
And, of course, there's got to be the potential for big returns.
Yeah. Got to make that money.
But I guess there's got to be a way to get beyond just gut feeling,
Yeah. Yeah.
to actually measure the potential of an idea.
Right. Like it can't just be about a good pitch.
Right, right.
There must be some way to look at it objectively and be like, okay, this is worth pursuing.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. That's where, that's where you got to bring in the numbers.
Okay.
That's where the quantitative side of things
Okay.
comes in.
Okay, let's talk numbers.
All right. So the source material talks about two main approaches:
Okay.
discounted cash flow, or DCF,
DCF.
and real options.
Okay.
These are ways to, bring some data into the decision making,
Okay.
some cold hard facts.
All right, so break it down for me. What is this discounted cash flow thing?
So DCF, it sounds really complicated,
It does.
but it's basically all about projecting the long-term, financial viability of a project.
Oh,
You're basically trying to figure out, okay, if we invest in this,
Yeah.
is it going to make money down the road?
Right.
And you do that by calculating things like net present value or
Got that.
NPV
Yeah.
and internal rate of return, IRR.
Okay.
It's all very financial. You're basically estimating the future cash flows
Yeah.
from the project
Yeah.
and then discounting them back to today's value.
So it's like saying, okay, if this makes me X amount of money 5 years from now,
Yeah,
what is that actually worth to me today?
exactly. You
Yeah.
got it.
Okay, I'm with you. Now, what about real options?
Real options. Okay.
Yeah, what is that all about?
Real options is a bit more, it's a bit more nuanced.
Okay.
Think of it like, when you buy a stock option,
Yeah.
you're not obligated to buy the stock, but you have the right to
Right. If the price goes up.
if it goes up.
Yeah.
So real options in this context, it's about valuing that flexibility to make decisions
Okay.
as the project unfolds.
So it's like leaving the door open for different possibilities.
Exactly. Especially in uncertain situations,
Right.
like you often get with innovation,
Yeah.
that can be really valuable.
Okay. So it's like recognizing that innovation is a process.
It's a journey.
Yeah, a journey. It's not just a straight line.
Exactly. It's not just A to B. You got to
Yeah.
be able to adjust along the way.
Okay. But even with all these quantitative methods,
Yeah.
it's not always just about the numbers, right?
Yeah.
There are so many things that are hard to put into a spreadsheet.
Right.
Like, how well does the product fit customer needs?
Yes.
Does it fit with the company's strategy?
Those are big questions.
Yeah, big questions. And those aren't always about numbers.
You're spot on. Numbers are crucial,
Yeah.
but they don't give you the whole picture. That's why these, qualitative methods are just as important.
I was just going to ask about that. The source talks about these things called screening questions. What are those?
Yeah, screening questions. So they're basically like a checklist,
Okay.
to evaluate different parts of a project.
Okay.
So some of them might be about the customer.
Okay, customer focused.
Yeah, like, is there really a need for this?
Yeah, is anybody actually going to buy it?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
How easy is it to use?
Yeah.
What about pricing?
Yeah.
How are we going to get it to people?
Okay, so thinking about the whole process.
The whole process, yeah. And then, of course, you've got questions about the company itself.
Okay.
Like, can we actually pull this off? Do we have the resources, the knowledge?
Yeah, do we have the skills?
What are our competitors doing? Are they going to beat us to it?
Right, yeah.
Do we need to, develop new skills, new technologies to make this happen?
Yeah.
And, of course, timing and cost are always big considerations, too.
Yeah. Always got to keep an eye on the budget. And how long it's going to take.
Exactly.
So it sounds like it's about taking this holistic view,
It's a 360-degree view.
Yeah, not just getting stuck on those financial projections.
Okay.
Okay. This chapter also talks about a couple other interesting qualitative methods.
Oh, yeah.
The aggregate project planning framework, and then Q-sort.
Q-sort, yeah.
Those sound
They're interesting.
they sound intriguing. Tell me more.
So the aggregate project planning framework, it's all about visualizing like your entire R&D portfolio.
Okay.
So you're looking at all your projects
Yeah.
and you're trying to categorize them based on, how risky they are, how many resources they need,
Okay.
and when you expect to see those cash flows coming back in.
So it's like a bird's eye view of everything you're doing.
Exactly. The big picture view. And it helps you to see, is my portfolio balanced?
Okay.
Am I putting enough money into the risky, potentially high reward projects?
Moonshot projects.
The moonshots.
Yeah.
Or am I just sticking with the safe incremental improvements?
Okay.
You got to find that balance.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Now, what about Q-sort?
Q-sort.
How does that work?
Q-sort is actually, it's surprisingly simple,
Okay.
but it can be really effective.
Okay.
Imagine you've got, like a stack of cards.
Okay.
Each card represents a different project idea.
Okay. One idea per card.
Exactly. And you sort those cards based on, different criteria.
Okay.
So maybe you're ranking them by, how big the potential market is.
Okay.
Or how well they fit with your company's strengths.
Okay.
Or maybe by how hard they are to actually do.
Okay. So like the level of difficulty.
The technical difficulty. Exactly.
So it's a way to get everybody like literally on the same page.
Literally.
And to have to make those tough choices about what comes first, what comes second.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by doing multiple rounds of sorting and having discussions, you can really, get to a consensus. Make sure everyone's voice is heard. So you're bringing in different perspectives.
It's collaborative.
Very collaborative.
Okay. So it seems like we've got these quantitative methods on one side,
Yeah.
and then we've got these qualitative approaches on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Do companies usually pick one or the other? Or is it more about, like, finding that balance?
Well, in the real world, most companies, they use a mix of both.
Okay.
They know that data is important,
Yeah.
but they also know that intuition and experience and understanding those things that are hard to measure,
Right.
that's important too.
Yeah, it's like that human element,
A
right?
human element, exactly.
Okay. And the source material actually goes into a couple of methods that specifically combine quantitative and qualitative data.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, conjoint analysis and data envelopment analysis.
Okay.
We're going to talk more about those in just a minute.
Sounds good. It's about bringing those numbers together with that, I don't know, that gut feeling.
Yeah, that gut feeling, that instinct.
Right. That experienced leaders bring to the table.
Exactly, exactly. And the source actually, it talks about a couple of methods that specifically try to combine this quantitative data and the qualitative stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
They're called conjoint analysis and data envelopment analysis.
Conjoint analysis. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting names.
Yeah. We're going to break those down in just a sec, but they're like, I don't know, they're like the bridge between the two worlds.
I see. So they're trying to marry those two approaches.
Exactly. Okay, so conjoint analysis.
Conjoint analysis. All right.
This one's pretty interesting.
Okay.
It's all about understanding what customers really want.
Right.
So imagine like you're showing customers different versions of a product,
Okay.
but each version has like different features
Okay.
at different prices.
So like giving them options, right?
Yeah, like here's option A, here's option B, what do you think?
I see. Like a sneak peek.
Yeah. Exactly. Like you get a little sneak peek, tell us what you like.
Okay.
And then through some, I don't know, some statistical wizardry,
Yeah, right.
the company can figure out which features are like the most important to people
Okay.
and how much they're actually willing to pay.
So it's like a way to really fine-tune those innovation efforts.
Exactly. They can make sure they're actually making stuff that people want to buy.
That makes sense. It's not just about what they think is cool.
Exactly.
It's about what the customers are actually willing to put their money down for.
Exactly. The textbook actually gives this cool example.
Oh, yeah.
Marriott, you know the hotel chain?
Yeah.
They used conjoint analysis when they were developing their Courtyard hotels.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. They figured out that business travelers, they
Oh.
really wanted certain things.
Yeah.
Like a good workspace.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Reliable Wi-Fi.
Definitely. Got to have the Wi-Fi.
Of course. And like good security.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Safety first.
Yeah, but they wanted all of that at a good price.
Of course, who doesn't?
Right. So that insight, like it actually shaped the entire Courtyard brand.
So they took that feedback, those results,
Mhm.
and they actually used it to design the hotels.
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. It's cool to see how these methods that sound kind of, I don't know, abstract,
You got
they
it.
can actually have this real impact on what we see and experience.
Mm-hmm. It's like it's bringing it all back to the real world.
Exactly. All right. Now, data envelopment analysis, or DEA.
DEA. Okay.
This one's a little more technical.
Okay, hit me with it.
It's basically, it's a way to compare how efficient different projects are, even if they're being measured on different scales.
So like different metrics.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it creates this efficiency frontier
Okay.
that represents the best performing projects.
The top performers.
Yeah, and anything that falls short of that frontier,
Mhm.
it's considered less efficient.
So it's like a benchmarking tool.
Exactly. It shows you which projects are giving you the most bang for your buck.
I see. And helps you maybe identify like areas where you need to, step it up.
Yeah. Or maybe even like cut your losses.
Right.
Be like, okay, this one's just not working. We got to move on.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And to allocate those resources wisely.
Exactly. And whether it's a giant company or a brand new startup, these decisions are so important.
They're make or break.
Yeah. Okay, so we have talked about a lot today. We've gone from like those technology trails to, I don't know, all those financial calculations.
Number crunching.
Yeah, the number crunching. So what are the biggest things you want our listener to take away from all of this?
Well, I think that the first thing to remember is that there's no like magic formula for choosing the right innovation.
Okay.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Okay.
Every company, every industry is different. Every project is unique. You can't just follow some set of rules and expect to hit a home run every time.
Yeah, it's not like throwing darts at a board.
Exactly.
Why?
You got to think it through. You got to be strategic.
Okay.
You got to consider your resources, your capabilities, what you're trying to achieve as a company.
And be willing to adapt, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like if things aren't working,
Yeah.
you got to be willing to change direction.
Pivot, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about being flexible.
Okay. And it seems like finding that balance, right, between the data
Yeah.
and the human judgment, that's so key.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Data can give you amazing insights, but we got to remember that numbers, they don't tell the whole story.
Right, right.
Those qualitative factors,
Yeah.
like understanding the customer,
Mm-hmm.
understanding the competition, those are just as important.
It's almost like that saying, measure what you can, manage what you can't.
Oh, I like that. Yet you need both sides of the coin to really be successful with innovation.
Exactly. So for our listener out there who might be thinking like, okay, this is cool, I want to innovate. What's your one piece of advice for them? How do they navigate this whole world of bringing new ideas to life?
That's a good question. You know what? I think the most important thing is don't be afraid to fail.
Okay.
Innovation is risky.
Yeah.
You're not going to hit a home run every time,
Right.
and that's okay.
Okay.
What matters is that you learn from your mistakes,
Okay.
that you keep trying, keep iterating,
Keep going.
keep pushing forward. Some of the most successful innovators are the ones who, they messed up a lot along the way, but
Yeah.
they learned from it.
They kept going.
They kept going. That's the key.
So it's about embracing that process.
Embracing the process, yes.
Of like
yes.
experimenting and trying things out and knowing that it's not always going to be perfect.
Exactly. It's about having that growth mindset, embracing the challenges and seeing them as chances to learn and get better.
Okay, I like that. Growth mindset. Well, this has been such an insightful deep dive.
It has. We've covered a lot.
We have covered so much. We've gone from those tech trails all the way to the financial stuff, the strategic stuff.
The whole shebang.
The whole shebang.
Yeah.
So for our listener out there,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with a thought.
Okay.
Think about something that you use regularly, a product or a service. What innovation opportunities do you see?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, like what could be better? How would you pitch that to a company?
Ooh, yeah.
How would you pitch that to an investor?
I like that. I like that.
Because remember, innovation is ongoing.
Always happening.
It never stops.
And the best companies, they're always exploring new ideas. They're adapting. They're learning.
So as we wrap up today,
Yeah,
keep exploring, keep questioning, keep that spark of innovation alive.
that's right. And you never know, maybe you will be the one to bring the next big thing to the world.
That's a great note to end on.
It is.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been fun. And we hope you've learned something new today.
For sure.
Until next time, keep those innovative minds working. It's wild, right? To think about all the stuff that goes into these decisions, the data, the gut feelings, what's happening in the market, the risks. It really shows you just how complex innovation is.
It really is, yeah. One thing that really stood out to me from this chapter was this idea of timing. Like, yeah, it's important to pick the right innovation,
Right.
but knowing when to go for it, that could be just as important.
You're right. You're right. We were talking about those tech trails and how companies are trying to, predict the future, but actually timing those investments, that seems really tricky.
It is. It is. Think about it this way. Imagine a company back in the early 2000s.
Right.
They decided to put all their money into making a super high-tech VR headset.
Okay, a virtual reality headset back then.
Yeah. The tech might have been amazing for the time,
Yeah,
but the market just wasn't there yet.
right. People weren't ready for it.
People weren't interested. The infrastructure wasn't there to support it. It could have been a total flop.
Even though tech was good.
The tech might have been great.
Wow. It's like they say, being too early is the same as being wrong.
It's true. It's true. You can have the most brilliant idea in the world,
Yeah.
but if nobody's ready for it, you're going to have a tough time.
And on the flip side, if you're too late, that's not good either.
Whoa, no, absolutely not.
You missed the boat.
You miss the boat completely. Someone else comes in,
Yeah.
they take all the market share, and you're left behind.
Timing is everything.
Timing is everything. It's like catching a wave.
Okay.
You gotta know when to paddle, when to stand up.
Are there any signs that companies can look for
Yeah.
to try and, I don't know, figure out the best time to jump in? Like, are there things they can see in the market or
Yeah.
like how people are behaving
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
that kind of tell them, okay, now's the time?
Well, I mean, one of the big things is just looking at trends,
Okay.
and how consumer behavior is changing. Are people starting to show interest in a specific technology or a new way of doing things?
Mhm.
Are those early adopters, the people who always want the latest gadget,
Yeah, yeah.
are they buying into it?
So it's like picking up on those, I don't know, those subtle
The
hints.
little whispers, yeah.
Yeah, that something's about to happen.
That something's brewing, yeah.
It's like a surfer, right?
Yeah.
Watching for that perfect wave.
Exactly.
Mm.
And, companies also look at things like technological advancements.
Yeah.
Like, are there other technologies developing that could make their innovation better or easier to use? For example, the whole streaming revolution.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have happened without high-speed internet
Right.
and powerful phones and tablets. Those things had to be in place for streaming to really take off.
So it's like all these different things have to come together at the right time.
It's like a puzzle. All the pieces got to fit just right.
It's pretty amazing to think about all those factors, right? And how companies are trying to like analyze and predict those moments when everything aligns.
Oh, yeah, it's a constant game of trying to stay ahead of the curve. But, even with all that, even with all the data and the analysis,
Yeah.
there's always a chance that things won't work out.
Right. Right.
That's the risk you take with innovation.
Yeah, that's part of the game.
It is. It is. But as we talked about earlier, failure, it's not the end.
Okay.
It's a chance to learn, to try again.
To keep pushing forward.
Exactly. To keep pushing forward.
I think that's such a good message for everyone listening to take away from this deep dive. Choosing innovation projects. It's about making smart decisions,
Yeah.
analyzing the market, understanding all those complexities. But it's also about being willing to experiment,
Yeah.
taking risks.
Calculated risks, of course.
Yeah, calculated risks and just learning from everything you do.
That's the key.
So, as we wrap up today,
Yeah.
I want to encourage you. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep that innovative spark alive. You never know, maybe you'll be the one to bring that next big idea to the world.
Maybe you will. It could be anyone listening.
Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been awesome talking about all this with you.
It's been a pleasure. I've had a lot of fun.
Me too. Until next time, keep those innovative minds working.